Well, welcome. We are so excited you're here. I'm Lisa Beth Thomas. Yeah. I'm clapping for myself. I'm so excited. I'm known as LB, and I have to say this is unbelievable. The Pershing holds 100, seats 100, and so Andre and I thought it'd be great. We should invite 120, 130, because not everybody will show. Well, everybody showed. So, for those of you that are standing in the back, I apologize, but you are closest to the bar, so you are good. You are good to go. But I want to give a shout out to the Pershing. Isn't this a beautiful space? Yes. And they donated it, so that's even better. Yes, it's awesome. Yes. I also want to give a big shout out to our photographer, Nick Austin. She's amazing. Yes. And Jean Poteet and Susie of Room Redux, thank you for making this happen back there. Thank you. So Not on Our Watch is an initiative of Texas Women in Business, and I'm the founding president, and I'm so honored. All chapters are here today, are represented, advisory board members are here, and they arranged watch parties across the state. So not only are we watching it here, but it's live streamed all over the state, so thank you for that. That's amazing. So cool. And we have support of the Governor's Commission for Women, which is so huge. And Christina, I was thinking about it last night. It was 4 years ago this month, I got together with Executive Director Christina McKinney over coffee, and we were saying, what can we do? It was our 10-year anniversary of Texas Women in Business. I said, let's do something big. What can we do? And we started talking about trafficking. And I was like, there's an issue? We have a problem in Texas? I don't understand. And that's when the idea was born to come up with an awareness campaign, because we can't fix it if we're not aware of it. Right? That's exactly what it is. So Not on Our Watch is an awareness campaign. It's designed to educate women in business, right? Reach out across the state so we can be educated. Learn about what online grooming and abuse and exploitation and sextortion is. Because it is affecting everyone, every child. And when Andrea and I got together, we've been working on this since before COVID, because then COVID hit. We were first talking about trafficking because there's so many facets to trafficking. But as COVID kept happening and kids were more and more at home, online, so were the predators. And the online trending is just going up and up and up. And we realized that every child with a smartphone or a laptop could be a victim. So we're like, this is not just over there in another country. This isn't just over, it is in our backyards. It's in your child's bedroom. It's there. And so we really then put our heads together and said, we have to talk about this. This is not being talked about. So that's why we're here. So thank you for being here. We're so excited. We're beyond excited to have our special guests. Our First Lady, amazing, right? First Lady of Texas, Mrs. Cecilia Abbott, thank you for being here. 3 years ago, when we started to talk about launching Not on Our Watch, we were going to do it 3 years ago, June, Cecilia Abbott said, of course I'll give the opening remarks. 3 years later, she's here, because that shows what her heart is about, protecting our children. So, thank you. So exciting. We also have former state congressman and judge, Ted Poe. Is he in the house? Back there. Austin, you just walked in the door. Want to give it up, a big give up to, our shout out to our special guest from Florida, Elena Cardone. She flew in. She flew in from Miami yesterday to be here, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But is Donna Howard here? I haven't seen Donna Howard. We wanted to give a shout out to her as well, because she she's supposed to be here, but when she does, we'll give her a shout out. But she is such a huge champion for Texas and for women and all things about protecting our children. So we have an incredible day planned, information, education, tools that you're gonna need and want. So before we get started, I definitely want to honor the Governor's Commission for Women. So please stand, those that are here from the Governor's Commission for Women. Yes. Yeah, they're championing us all across the state. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. restrooms and water is in the back. The big ask is to please silence your phones. Turn them off, turn them down. If you have to have a side conversation, if there's a phone call that you need to make or take, or a text, whatever, we ask you to take it outside. It's 105, so it'll be short. You'll come right back in, so we know you won't miss a thing, right? So without further ado, let's get started. I have the honor of introducing you to Natalie Parker. Natalie is the CEO and president of KLP Commercial and also the chair of the Governor's Commission for Women. And she's got a special introduction for us.
Thank you, Lisa Beth. Hi, everybody. On behalf of the Governor's Commission for Women, we're happy to be here today to support Not on Our Watch Texas for spreading awareness about online exploitation of our youth. And as we all know, our youth are spending a tremendous amount of time on the internet, playing video games, social media, messaging apps, and on and on. And with this, the crime of online exploitation is exploding. And we can do something about it. And it is through awareness and action that we can actually curve this trajectory. The Commission for Women is proud to work with Cecilia Abbott, our First Lady of Texas, to raise awareness of online exploitation and human trafficking and the dangers of what's happening in our great state of Texas. I'm honored today to introduce our very special guest. In January of 2015, Cecilia Abbott made history by becoming the first Hispanic First Lady of Texas. She's been a teacher, a vice principal, and a principal of various Catholic schools across Texas. She's worked in senior healthcare services and is involved in many educational and philanthropic organizations. Her signature initiative as First Lady of Texas combines the two things she's the most passionate about, Texas and philanthropy. Sorry, I always get that wrong, philanthropy. But she has combined the two, and she has the signature saying of Texanthropy, and that is her signature initiative. By combining volunteerism and service across the state of Texas to the kids and the family of Texas. Cecilia is also passionate about ways for Texans to support children and families across Texas who are in our child state welfare systems and who are victims of human trafficking. And so we are here to help develop strategies to end human trafficking. Most importantly, though, Cecilia is a devoted wife to her husband of 42 years, our great Governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. She's a proud mother to Audrey, her daughter, and her dogs, Peaches and Pancake. Please join me in welcoming our great First Lady of Texas, Cecilia Abbott.
Well, thank you so much, Natalie. Thank you so much for having me here today and for just being here in person and joining us and joining those who are here with us virtually. It's important that we educate and protect all Texans, but especially our children and teens about online safety. This starts with giving parents the tools they need to recognize danger signs and encouraging them to have conversations with their kids about how to have safe online experiences. In a digital world, the crime of online enticement will continue to grow. But together, we can help bring this topic to light and protect each and every child in our great state. I am so thankful to everyone here today for your efforts to raise awareness of the various forms of online abuse and exploitation to help protect our children and youth. I ask all Texans to join us in this fight. When we recognize the signs of online predators and when we report suspected trafficking activity, we can change the lives of our fellow Texans. I have no doubt that in joining together, we can help end this inhumanity, because nothing on this earth is more powerful than Texans helping Texans. I ask that God may bless all who are hurting and suffering, that He may open our eyes so that we may see, and that He may open our hearts so that we may act. And may He forever bless the great state of Texas. Thank you.
Isn't she incredible? Yes. We are so blessed. When Mrs. Abbott first got here, Elaine and I were talking with her, and she said one of the things about this issue that she is so passionate about is it crosses all political lines. It doesn't matter who you are. These are our children. So I think that says it all. Wherever you stand, it's our kids. Right now we want to take a few minutes, and we're going to watch a video from Brian Montgomery and his son Walker Montgomery.
Yeah, my name is Brian Montgomery. I'm here today to kind of tell you the story of our family and a tragedy that occurred. Talk about my son Walker Montgomery. Walker was 16 years old. We are a very close family. We were always together. We hunted and fished together. Walker developed this intense passion for football. If I could describe Walker, it would really be work ethic. If he came into a room and met you, he would walk straight up to you and shake your hand and tell you his name and look you straight in the eyes. He was that kind of kid. But all those strengths really became a weakness to Walker on the night of this tragedy. Walker had come home from school, worked out. Bennett and I had gone hunting that afternoon. We'd gone bow hunting for deer on our farm. We had supper together as a family, just a very normal night. I remember having a conversation that night around the table. We were talking about Walker had just gotten his driver's license, and we were kind of picking at him because he wanted to put big tires on it, and he's a teenager, right? My wife put Walker to bed and Bennett to bed that night. Just an ordinary night, prayed with them, put them both to bed, and everything seemed perfectly normal. But around midnight, Walker received a message on his telephone from across Instagram, through the messaging portion of Instagram. Looked very normal, looked very innocent, and the message was just something like, "Hey, what's up?" Walker answered it and said not much, just hanging out. And the conversation was, again, very normal. You know, like you play football, how's school going, where do you go to school, where do you go to school? What you would think of as just a normal teenage conversation, nothing out of the way, no issues at all. Well, that led to this person convincing Walker to open a video chat to have a sexual encounter over the Instagram video portion. And Walker didn't know it, but the whole time he was being recorded. He was being recorded by another device they had on the other side. And as soon as that encounter was over with, they came right back to Walker and said, "Hey, we've got this video of you, and if you don't pay us $1,000, we're going to send it to everybody that is on your Instagram list." And I even further can't imagine that stress as a 16-year-old boy who's still trying to figure out his way and his place and all the things that come along with that pressure. So in an instant, Walker's life was being really threatened, because the conversation went very much like that. I mean, these people were telling Walker, "Hey, your life's over. Everything that you love, everything you care about's gone. it's done. Nobody's going to love you. And so all those conversations, they just continue to build this mountain in front of Walker, and you know, telling him if he didn't pay them, that they were going to send it to everybody. And Walker's begging them to stop, begging them to quit, and of course they wouldn't. Eventually they get to the point where they're sending Walker screenshots of their side, of the messaging side, showing that they're sending those videos out to his friends. And you know, that continued, and as far as Walker knew, that was being sent. But the reality is that it wasn't. Nobody that we know of received any of those videos, but Walker thought they were. You know, they wanted the money. They said, steal it from your mom and dad. Walker said, I can't do that. Just continues to mount this pressure, and eventually they show Walker where they've sent the video to his mom, and Walker responds, I'm just going to kill myself. Their response was, go ahead, because you're already dead anyway. So that conversation lasted about 2 hours. Started about midnight. Looks like it was over by around 2 o'clock in the morning. And at some point during the night, Walker goes into my office and goes into my safe, which he had the combination to because of our ventures, you know, in the woods, always hunting together. And he went in there and got a handgun and went back up to his bedroom. At some point during the morning hours, took his own life. So the question would automatically be, you know, what would lead to this kind of tragedy? One of the things that I talk about, and I've talked about a lot, is the aspect of teens having access to their phones during the night, you know, or in private places. We were looking at Walker's phone and trying to understand, you know, what was going on. Was there some depression that we didn't know about? Was some mental illness? And we don't see any of those factors in Walker's communication at all. Really the only thing that we found was some pornography use. But I believe the current statistic is about 87% of men have looked at pornography in the past year, and 47 or 8% look at it on a regular basis. You know, in our generation, it didn't lead to these types of problems. But in this case, it did. I believe Walker saw this as just one step further into that world. He was a 16-year-old boy with a healthy sex drive. If you're a man, you can relate to that. This is happening on a systematic scale that we really can't imagine. One of the reasons we're in this situation is because we didn't know. You generally don't protect yourself from something you don't know about. And so with that mindset, I know that if we would have known that, we would have done something about it. I think it's a natural instinct to want to keep this private. It's embarrassing. At the core of why Walker did what he did is because of how he anticipated people reacting to him, right? So the other side of that is the culture we live in. How do we embrace people that make a mistake? What I would have, if Walker would have knocked on my door that night, I'd have said, Walker, we're going to figure it out. We love you. You didn't make any mistake that I haven't made. And there's not an adult or kid that can say they're without blame or without problems. We've all made mistakes. And so as a parent, I want parents to hear that if your kid comes to you and you know about this, count that as a win. You've won. You've won the fight. Because once you understand the problem, you can fix it. You can solve problems you know about. You can't solve problems you don't know about. This deal with Walker occurred in one night. He went to bed perfectly healthy, perfectly happy. And we didn't get to see him again. Parents and teens and teachers, law enforcement, whoever is interested, you know, in this conversation, I guess what I would really want them to think through is, where do we go from here? And what I would really want to encourage people to understand is that in our society, we've crossed a line. A lot of us don't know we've crossed the line. I didn't know we had crossed the line. The line is that we've got a really dangerous tool in the hands of kids that can't handle their responsibility. And change is hard. Change means that you ask your kids, I want to take the phone tonight. It's going to my room and we're going to start a process of accountability. That's change, and that's hard, because if you're talking about a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid that may not even, probably not paying their own phone bill, but they're used to that freedom, it's a difficult conversation for parents to have. Teens, I would tell you, let your parents provide that oversight. Let them help you. They love you. They don't want anything to happen to you. There's nobody with more vested interest in your future than your parents. And so this collaboration of parents and kids and letting that guard down, let's figure out how to move forward. with that change and the understanding of the threat that we're against, it's real. My family is proof that it's real. And I don't want that to happen to anybody else. So we believe that God is going to achieve his purposes through this, and that Walker's life and death will be used by him. So we went to bed that night thinking the next day was going to be perfectly normal. You know, something I talk about pretty regular is the next morning we were on the couch and crying and upset, didn't know what to do. And Bennett, Walker's brother, looked at me and said, you know, Daddy, this was just supposed to be another normal day. And we think about that, and we expect every day we wake up is going to be another normal day. We woke up today and we thought, well, this is going to be just like yesterday. But it's not. We don't know when tomorrow is coming to where our lives are going to be turned completely upside down. And time is really important in this space because it moves quick. And the reality that Walker could go to bed healthy and not wake up the next morning it's unimaginable. And so what I'm asking is to use whatever influence you have today to try to make a difference. If that's with a legislator, if that's with your social media platform, if that's just with you telling a friend with what's going on in this world, it's really important because knowledge changes everything. If Walker could have just known, if Walker could have just had an idea, I believe it would have changed the whole trajectory of his life.
There are no words, right? No words. Brian Montgomery was going to be here today. He was very excited about being a part of this, and Walker's brother Bennett had his first football game of the season and said, I can't miss it. He was going to Zoom in. We were trying to make that work, and we just couldn't pull it off, but he said he'll be in Florida. He said he will be there at any event because he's passionate about it. He did ask us, though, if we would just take a minute of silence for Walker. So one of the things that he said, when Andrea sent me that video, I called her back immediately and said, oh my, this is why we're doing this, right? He said it beautifully in the video. I had no idea. I had no idea that this was a threat to my son. And if we would have known, if somebody would have told us, if we would have been aware, I would have talked to Walker about it, but I didn't know. And I love it. He says it, and we can't protect against what we're not aware of. And that's what this is all about, is making sure parents are aware. So I'd like you, we're going to start our panel, and I'm going to bring up Andrea Sparks. We joke about that we're partners in anti-crime, and we're here. And I'd like her to, she's going to bring up our panel, and we're going to find out what Texas is doing and what the tools, what you need, the tools you need to have to protect your children. So Andrea is a child advocate who has made protecting children her life's work. As a young attorney representing children in CPS and juvenile cases, as Director of Public Affairs at Texas CASA, as Director of the Texas Office of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, as Director of the Governor's Child Sex Trafficking Team, and now as Director of Government Relations at Buckner International and co-founder of Not on Our Watch Texas. Give it up for my partner. Love you, girl. Co-founder.
Wow. I've seen that video several times, and it still gets to me. And Brian is here with us. He's watching us, just so y'all know. I'm so delighted to be here. I'm so honored to be here among all of our special guests. Mrs. Abbott is here, and Elena Cardone from Florida. She's going to take this movement to Florida. We're going to hear from her later. We have Mrs. Texas, a couple of Mrs. Texases in the room, which is awesome. And they're here because their platform is anti-human trafficking and exploitation. So thank you. Thank you for helping us raise awareness. But I'm really excited about our panel. This whole event is about raising awareness about what the truth is going on out there. And this panel of experts that I'm bringing up now are truly experts. So I'm excited to get the word out, to hear what they have to say, and I'm going to introduce them now. And as I introduce you, if you could please come up, I'd appreciate that. So first, I'm going to go in alphabetical order because they're all so important. Deborah Berry is here. Deborah, you want to come up? So before becoming an author, Deborah spent years, just sit wherever you want. Sure. She spent years as a mostly stay-at-home mom. Her heart's desire to raise her 5 children, to be loving, productive, contributing members of society, every mother's dream. Then her world exploded. And if you got to visit with her back there, she's selling her book. Her world exploded and it forced her to become an author. Her youngest daughter, at age 10, was lured online into a virtual world of online pornography and sex trafficking. Fortunately for all of us now, Deborah is spending her time, her energy, and the knowledge gained from her experience into this book. So I urge y'all to go check it out so that other parents don't have that same nightmare. We've got Keisha Hurd. Keisha, you want to come on up? Keisha completed her Master of Arts in Counseling at Dallas Baptist University and is a licensed professional counselor. She has worked as a therapist with children in foster and adoptive homes, emergency shelters, outpatient settings, and currently works as the clinical supervisor at Williamson County Children's Advocacy Center, serving adolescents who've experienced abuse, violence, exploitation, and more online exploitation. We've got all the way from Mississippi, Ashley Lucas. Ashley is the chair of the Mississippi Trafficking Council, leading the state's anti-trafficking efforts. She represents Mississippi on several federal anti-trafficking initiatives as well. She is a certified law enforcement training instructor and also a personal friend of the Montgomery family, who we just heard from. And she will have some updates on their behalf on how they're doing and how the case is going. Thank you for that. Jennifer Newman. Jen is the executive director at NCMEC in the Texas office and also overseeing international engagements and special projects in the Exploited Children's Division, which handles just the kinds of cases that we're going to be talking about today. So we're so fortunate to have her here in Austin, Texas. She started with NCMEC in 2001 and has spent the last 21 years working cases, helping build programs, and engaging in the issues in the fight against sexual exploitation of children. We've got all the way from Grand Prairie, Texas, Detective Brandon Poore. Come on up, Brandon. Brandon Poore decided to become a detective after walking away from a career as a professional opera singer. We need to hear some singing later. But Brandon soon recognized his passion for and the need for protecting the vulnerable. He started Grand Prairie's Internet Crimes Against Children unit in 2014, and in this role, he works closely with state and federal law enforcement agencies, prosecutors. He provides expert testimony regarding internet crimes against children, and computer and cell phone forensics, which are more and more important. He trains other law enforcement officers and agencies, and he advocates for better laws in the Capitol, recently having a big win there. He also has a podcast called Catfish Cops. Check it out. It is specifically about these kinds of issues, and so we're excited that he can share that with us. Thank you for being here. And last but not least, my friend Joe Scaramucci. Joe is a former Marine who began his career. Why does that make you laugh? Who began his career in law.
That wasn't a good one.
I'm sure you were a great one. Thank you for your service. Began his career in law enforcement in 2004 at McLennan County Sheriff's Office in Waco. And since then, he has consistently risen through the ranks to become one of Texas's and one of the United States' leading experts on human trafficking. He has conducted sting operations and taught numerous other law enforcement agencies to conduct sting operations, resulting in literally hundreds and hundreds of arrests for human trafficking and related offenses. And he's helped really raise the bar on how we treat victims of human trafficking in our country. He is contracted to provide training and technical assistance through the Justice Department, and he has trained more than 421 law enforcement agencies around the country. He just recently, left law enforcement as a full-time job to become director of law enforcement engagement at Skull Games, which is a nonprofit that assists law enforcement agencies in finding traffickers and predators and recovering their victims. So we've got quite a panel. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to start with Detective Poor. There are so many harms to children online, and I know you've dealt with them all. You know, we started working on this campaign 3 years ago before COVID as kind of a human trafficking campaign, but we saw right away that this was becoming more and more and more about online harms. Can you explain what the differences are and like what are the harms out there to children that we should all be aware of?
Well, while trafficking, the word has gotten a lot of buzz and awareness, which it absolutely should, we look at trafficking in the field as one small component of the much larger umbrella would be child sexual abuse, and then within that umbrella you have child exploitation, online exploitation, and trafficking. And so we separate them out because trafficking has its own components and is multifaceted, as is online exploitation. And so the thing to remember is that most, in my colleagues and I's experience, most trafficking victims are high-risk youth, vulnerable victims already. But what we try to make apparent to most communities and parents within the community is online child exploitation and sextortion particularly are things that happen to anyone. It's your children are far more likely to be exploited online or sextorted than trafficked. And so a lot of times the trafficking comes after a child has been exploited or been abused and not had a supportive relationship in their family, then they go on to become trafficking victims. So our belief is we need to raise awareness and education about all of these components: child exploitation, online exploitation, child sex abuse, and trafficking equally.
Awesome, thank you. Jen, so can you talk a little bit about what the National Center does and more about the statistics around these issues?
Sure. So the National Center is a private nonprofit organization focused and dedicated really to three missions, which is finding missing children, fighting sexual exploitation of children, and preventing victimization. So we are designated by Congress to be the National Clearinghouse and Resource Center for missing and sexually exploited children issues. We're coming up on our 40th anniversary, so we were started back in 1984, and really we were born out of tragedy. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Adam Walsh in Florida. In 1981, Adam was a 6-year-old boy who went shopping with his mother, Reve, one afternoon, and unfortunately they just got separated just by an aisle, and unfortunately he was kidnapped right out of that store, and about a week later his body was found about 100 miles away. So in those horrible, awful 6-7 days for John and Reve, while their little boy was lost, they realized that there was no coordinated effort to find a missing child. John's pretty famous for saying that it was easier to find a stolen car than a stolen child back then, because there was no communication to the next department, the next county, the next state. So they basically converted their garage to posters and distribution and getting volunteers together, and they ran the operation themselves out of their garage. And once Adam's body was recovered and they just kind of dealt with that, they said, we don't want other families to go through this. This cannot happen to others. So they really turned their advocacy into action, and again, got NCMEC off the ground as a result of their tragedy and just really not wanting that to happen to others. So in terms of child sexual exploitation at the National Center, we have several programs of work. Some are geared more towards supporting law enforcement efforts. So we have a victim identification team, we have a child sex trafficking team, we have a team that actually helps law enforcement find absconded sex offenders. But really, and what we'll talk about today is our largest program of work, which is called the Cyber Tip Line. So that started back in 1998, and we are the nation's reporting mechanism for child sexual exploitation. So this can be child sexual abuse material, online enticement, which includes, extortion, sextortion. This could be sex trafficking, molestation. Those tips come into us at the National Center. We review those, we add values to those reports, and then we get them into law enforcement's hands where appropriate. So that's a bulk of what we're doing. Since as I mentioned, we started in 1998. We've had over 169 million cyber tip line reports come through. And we'll talk a little bit about the volume that we're seeing year over year in a minute. Another really key component of our work in the sexual exploitation, kind of going off what Brandon was saying, is prevention. I mean, that's ultimately what we want, right? We don't want to be that response agency. We want to stop it from happening. We kind of joke, I think we all wish we could be out of jobs, right? Like, that's ultimately what we would wish for. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And so, we have a program called NetSmarts. I have some material in the back there, which is geared towards kids, parents, adults, anyone who cares about a child, but really equipping them and empowering them to talk to kids. Communication is probably our biggest tool in this fight, and so having the tools on what to say and learning about the issue first yourself, and then knowing what to talk to kids about is really our best bet in this. And so our NetSmarts program is able to kind of provide those resources. And so talking a bit about statistics, again, as I mentioned, we've had over 169 million cyber tip line reports programmed to date. I can tell you last year we had 32 million cyber tip line reports come through. So to make that digestible, that's 70 to 80,000 reports a day that are coming into us of child sexual exploitation online. And we get reports from both members of the public, but also electronic service providers. So that's going to be, your social media, gaming, chat, all of those companies. They're actually bound by law to make reports to the cyber tip line if they become aware of child sexual exploitation imagery on their platforms. So you can really see that volume that's coming into us. And when we look at trends, and you can look year over year, it increases every year. So last year was a 9% increase from the year before. It was a 35% increase from the year before that. So, I think on one hand we can say, oh my gosh, there's a continual explosion of child sexual exploitation online. I think ultimately just we're online more, right? Kids are online, younger and younger these days, through no judgment, but just that's how we are living. We are living online more and more, and these kids, through schooling and everything, tablets, we call them digital natives. They are growing up with tablets in their hands. And so you can just kind of see that increase that's coming. We're also getting better reporting coming in from the companies. So it's not all bad news that number is going up. I would rather have it be detected and reported in than let it just go unfettered out there in the internet. And one thing that's really important about the cyber tip line is it's a great data set for trends, right? What are we looking at and what do we need to respond to? And so while we certainly, our first priority is to get these reports in and out to law enforcement, we also then use it as a tool to help us figure out where we need to do our prevention messaging and where we can help with a solution to better response. And one of the things that we're seeing is an increase in online enticement, which includes the sextortion that we heard about in Walker's case. Last year between 2021 and 2022, we saw an 82% increase in online enticement reports coming into us. And when we even look at this year, I can tell you in the first 6 months of 2021 to the first 6 months of 2023, we've seen a 219% increase in online enticement reports. And when we talk specifically about that financial sextortion, which is what we're all dealing with now, already by July of this year, we had received more reports relating to financial sextortion than we'd seen all of the year prior. So this isn't going away. So Walker's story is more important than ever now for awareness and to talk about this. I mean, I can tell you too, I mean, as someone who does this for a job and has for 20 years, I had a friend call me and say my son was financially sextorted. No one is immune to this. Please understand that. It is happening to all of our boys, and it's a global issue. It's not even just here in the United States. So talking about it, targeting our boys with messaging and saying, hey, this is happening, this is so crucial for us. And then just real quick in terms of Texas, what does that mean here in Texas? There's a lot going on in Texas. Brandon can speak to it as part of the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force Network, or ICACs. For those of you who don't know about that, Department of Justice has 61 what we call ICACs around the country. There are 3 here in Texas. So we have the Texas AG's office, we have Houston, and we have Dallas. Of all the 61 ICACs, the 3 in Texas are always in the top 10 for the most volume of cyber tip line reports. So there is a lot happening in our state, you know, and it's important that we keep those communication lines open with law enforcement. You know, we were talking right before this, talking about the state of cyber tip line reports, but, you know, it's not going away.
Jen, I want to follow up on one thing you said, which was about boys and the financial sextortion. Is it mostly boys being targeted for this?
Yeah, so for the financial sextortion, this is unlike something we had really ever seen. Traditional grooming and online enticement, which former law enforcement, and I'm sure everyone's familiar with, was really targeted towards girls. And it was about developing this relationship, this fake relationship to get the child, usually again the girl, to create more content, take more pictures and videos, and they would ask, you know, just to get more imagery from that child and kind of pursue this fake romantic relationship. What we're seeing now with these boys, this financial sextortion, which Walker went through, this is totally different. This is actually not really a sexually motivated crime. The offenders in this actually are organized crime rings. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but it's absolutely not. But we're finding most of them are coming out of Africa, West Africa, Nigeria, the Ivory Coast. These are organized crime rings that are just targeting our boys. We find the average age between 14 and 17. And it really flagged for the National Center when we saw, unfortunately, a lot of death by suicides from our boys. And that was when we said, hold on, we have got to do something about this, because we were seeing these reports come in and these desperate call outs from these kids who had nowhere else to go and were just saying, this is happening to me. And again, we'd try to follow up and we'd find out that unfortunately that child, you know, had died by suicide or was having suicidal ideation, and we try to get, you know, intervention there. But, you know, we took that role that we play as a clearinghouse and we pulled together law enforcement and child serving professionals and the tech companies and said, we all need to do something. So we have got to respond to this because this is escalating. And I told you it is. Like, we're seeing that in our numbers. And as we heard from Walker, boys don't want to come out and talk about this. They don't want to say, this is happening to me, you know, whether it's embarrassment or feeling duped, you know, that they kind of got catfished by the fake profile. They don't want to come forward. And so we really have to be vigilant on their behalf. But it is, you know, it's frightening, although we are seeing some good results. You know, the National Center's been over to Nigeria twice. We're planning to go to the Ivory Coast later this year to talk to law enforcement there. We were really happy to see that Michigan is actually extraditing 3 Nigerians and bringing them over here to hold them accountable for the death of a child who died by suicide. So what I think we first thought was maybe going to be this black hole, we are seeing great engagement from international law enforcement, and they want to stop it too. And then just great to see that we're getting some results here stateside too in terms of holding these offenders accountable.
Awesome, thank you. Ashley, let's bring it back to the Walker family. I know that you're personal friends with them, and you also know a little bit more about the case. Can you tell us a little bit about how this happened to Walker and who the perpetrators may be?
Sure. So the Montgomery family, what they've shared with them is they feel like it is Nigerians. And so our agents have actually been over in Nigeria as well, investigating that, because I think there was 12 deaths by suicide last year due to sextortion. And one thing that she says is in agreement with you, this financial sextortion is financially motivated, and they're targeting our boys. And this can be through gaming systems. This can be through social media. So we've really got to start paying attention. But what Brian, really wants to drive home is this happened in one night. One night changed everything for their family. In one night, this happy, healthy kid from this amazing family, you cannot put together a more perfect family. Like, they are the salt of the earth. They spent so much time together. They did everything right. This happened to their son in 3 hours. And that hits home for everyone in this room. They did not know how to warn their child. They did not know about this. This was not on their radar. And so they want to use this platform, and they are so inspired by you being here, watching this video, because they know that you're going to take this video out there, and that you're going to show this, and that you're going to educate and bring outreach and awareness, and that you're going to save lives because of this. And so they're so inspired by everyone that has come alongside them. Walker was a great kid. There were no signs of mental health. When they interrogated his phone, there was nothing there. All of his friends, he went from happy, healthy, at football, like everything was going well in his life, to dying by suicide that night. And so that just lets us know how important this is. That video is downloadable. Brian told me, he said, "Ashley, I'm only one person." And he was speaking everywhere. He was just recently in San Antonio, and he's been all over Mississippi. He said, "I'm only one person. Do you think we could get this videoed?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, we sure can." And so we funded this video, and Omega Productions came alongside us, and we made it downloadable on the Mississippi Department of Public Safety website. Under the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, we have a human trafficking, and you can download it. We want you to share it. We want you to show it, and we want you to get the word out there to these parents.
Thank you. That's our aim. That's one of our goals today. How is the family doing now? How are they coping with this? This happened in December?
Yeah, December. This happened in December of this past year. And so he said, I talked to him this week, and I said, "Brian, how would you answer this? Because that's what's important, like, from what I see." And he said that without their faith, they would not be where they are right now. It's made their family stronger. However, it's been very, very difficult. There are very, very hard days, but it's strengthening his family. And like I said prior to that, he is so inspired that God is going to use this to bring awareness through this tragedy, and he's going to save children across the United States.
Thank you. It's good to hear. Let's talk to Deborah for a second, because I know we have your book, and hopefully you'll all grab a copy of it, because it's chock full of your story, but also lots and lots of tips that you had to learn the hard way. Can you tell us a little bit about your story? What happened to your daughter?
Well, back in 2016, if you had told me I'd be fighting the fight of my life to save my daughter from online sexual predators, I would have told you, no way, not me. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm very engaged with my children, very involved. But as it turned out, it was me and it was my daughter. So one day, when she was 12 years old, I was checking her social media, like we all do. Not the most consistent person, I have to admit. And, the Instagram, the texting, all of that. And then that particular day, I did something a little bit different. I went back and I looked at her photo library, which was not something I usually did. And I went back further and further in that library until all of a sudden, I came across a screenshot of a conversation between her and strangers that I didn't recognize their names, that was chocked full of such vile, sexually charged language. I didn't even know my daughter knew those words. So in that moment, our world changed. And I knew I was only at the tip of this iceberg. So I got a hold of the rest of her laptop, did a deep dive, only to discover she had been on pornography websites, Pornhub in particular, adult dating sites, so many I couldn't even count them. Eventually, I was able to trace that this started when she was 10. So this had gone on for 2 years, and she was really good at erasing her stuff, which I also later learned they talk them into erasing the history so the parents don't find it. I had no idea. So in addition to all those hits on porn sites and dating sites, there were a lot of videos and photos that she had taken of herself. Let's just put it this way. I didn't exactly know what I was looking at first. It's pretty horrifying. So in that moment, I felt as if her life were in total danger. That's about all I knew. And we reacted very quickly, and we put her in a wilderness program, which y'all may or may not know what that is. I go into detail in the book with that, explain what that is. And then onto therapeutic boarding schools. So she was away from our home for almost 4 years. So with that came a huge emotional cost. This is my baby, my third child, and a huge financial cost. So this is what I do know. I know that she was exposed to pornography at 10 years old. A lot of hardcore pornography, not your Playboy, not that stuff. We're talking sick stuff. And I know that she was digitally sex trafficked. And as a result of that, my daughter, my little girl, was robbed of her innocence at age 10. Because you can never, ever unsee what you have seen. I also know she was robbed forever of her security, because those pictures are out there somewhere. I have no idea where they are. I don't know if they will resurface. I don't know any of those things. She was also robbed of her time with us. And the 8th grade dance and the prom and the homecoming and all the things that we look forward to doing with our daughters and our sons. So all gone. And then I was robbed of my ability to teach my daughter about healthy relationships and what sex should look like and all those things. So that's basically it in a nutshell. It's a very condensed version of a very long, hard journey. But I did write the book really for anybody, not just moms, dads, anybody who loves a child, to let you know what could happen, because it happened to me. And if it happened to me, it could happen to any one of you. I can promise you that. So,
We so thank you for being here and telling your story and sharing. It's very, very valuable. And I know it's hard every time. Can you tell us how she's doing today?
I honestly believe that the 4 years of the wilderness and the therapeutic boarding school saved her life. Sounded a little, maybe overreacting to send her away like that, but it kept her safe and it stopped the behavior, because they did not have technology those 4 years, which is why in the book I write about all the things I learned about technology. In a funny kind of way, because she didn't have technology for 4 years, I think her brain developed really well. And as it turns out, when she came home and she was a junior in high school, she became a pilot. So this kid is a pilot, and that is what she wants to do, and she has earned an instrument rating and a commercial rating. And she is in her she's in her 3rd semester of college now, and she's doing pretty well, and I don't think she ever wants to go back there. However, it may come up again. Thank you.
We're all rooting for her and for you.
Me
for
too.
Sure. Keisha, so you see kids from right here in Central Texas all the time. Can you tell us what you're seeing, what kind of victimization you're seeing about online harms to kids?
Absolutely. So, like Brandon said, online exploitation at our center, it's all tracked under child sexual abuse. And so, what we see is it may be abuse, it may be assault, it may even be trafficking. And online exploitation could be a common thread when it comes to that. And so, particularly at our center, what we have seen right here in Central Texas are even dating apps, Snapchat. With that, you can add strangers. They may think that they're friends, and it can be based on just their location, who's around them. And also, even a big one is no, man, it just went through my mind. The gaming site. Discord, Discord is another one where it's just that instant messaging. And so with that, at our center, even when they come into therapy, because they have maybe had a forensic interview and they come to therapy, we will talk with the parents. We'll talk with them and ask them, what safety controls do you have on these devices? Because a lot of times they don't know, or they may have certain things in place, but we want to do what we can to educate in a therapeutic way. But also at our advocacy center, we have our education and prevention, and so they're going out into the community, they're going into schools, they're trying to meet with, as young as now elementary school and up to high school, talking to students about the implications of what this can do, because they don't necessarily realize the impact of social media and apps, because to them, it's just a way that they're connecting with people.
I know many of us are thinking this will never happen to my child. Surely my child will come wake me up. Surely they'll see that this is a scammer. But tell us a little bit about why this kind of manipulation is so powerful over young brains.
Absolutely. So I want you to think back to when you were maybe a youth. At that time, you are hanging out with your friends. You may have started to kind of disengage from your caregivers a little bit, even though you may love your parents. You love your friends so much. You look to them for their opinions, their values, and at this time we see that they really will look to them for enjoyment. They look for ways to connect with them, and through that, with just manipulation and grooming, what we see is, so they're going to social media, and as Jennifer even talked about, within the last few years, we've seen the percentages raise for online use because of COVID, because technology's been around. What we are seeing is they will want to engage online because it's a way to connect with people. And to them, that's their friends. When you think about youth, it's all about their identity. They're trying to figure out who they are in this world and how they can connect with other people. And so for them, they think it's their friend. And we see through social media, there's filters. People are lying about their age. Even through like FaceTime, there's ways for them to make it seem like they're talking to someone their age, when in reality it could be someone a lot older than them. And so when it comes to grooming, what they're doing is they're making that connection. They think it's their friend. They're providing flattery. They're complimenting them. They're saying, oh, you're so pretty, you're so special. Because what they are doing is they're inching their way in, and it's another person that they can go talk to. They've had a hard day. They don't go to their parent. They go to this person because that relationship has been formed. They have a bond now. And even in Walker's case, it started out just, hey, what's up? How are you doing? But then it can spiral into something more. And so when it comes to these adolescents, what we see is, even if it has negative emotions, they're trying to fit in. They're worrying about, are they popular enough? They are going to engage in different things in order to fit in, to not be bullied, to not be isolated, and to not be teased. So they're going to continue doing this, but with parents knowing just how technology is and how it's constantly evolving and changing. Each day a new app is formed or a new website is created. For you having that education and being able to show up for your kid of, hey, I'm here. And even when it comes to, as we were talking about with boys being, it's just increasing. When it comes to child sexual abuse, for boys and girls, there's people that may not ever share that they had been victimized. And with boys, we see it's even less common for them to come out and talk about what happened because of the shame associated with that. And we see that with girls too. They may not tell either because they're afraid of how their parent is going to respond. They're going to worry about, am I going to be believed? And they may think, how did I get there? Because again, go back to that, they think it's just their friend. They want to make that connection. And so it's one of those things that they're still youth, their brain hasn't fully been developed, and so what they think is right, they're gonna do it. Kids know everything, right? And so for being a parent, wanting to meet them where they're at and educate them.
Brandon, can you talk a little bit about that? I know you've seen a lot of stuff online between predators and kids and how they can get kids to do things that we think are so unreasonable at the moment. How does the child brain respond to that?
Well, we're used to grooming being a long-term process in a child sexual abuse case, but online, that sense of anonymity, take it from me, the ugliest 12-year-old on the internet right now, that the predators groom.
Okay, you have to explain that.
In an undercover capacity, I play a 12-year-old boy or girl, hoping that the predator meets me instead of a real child. And so I get, thank you. They're very disappointed when it's me. I get groomed very quickly, and I get groomed over and over again. And so what takes maybe months or a year or long-term in person, online happens very quickly. And so when you think about the word friend, you may think about someone you've known for a year or 10 or 20 years. To a child these days online, a friend's someone they just met 5 minutes ago. It's instant. And so these friends that are grooming them very quickly, and the reason we call them predators is because they are predators. They are always, what does a predator do? It looks for prey that is weak and vulnerable, and the minute prey gives any resistance, it may turn to a weaker and more vulnerable prey and leave that one alone. And that's what these predators do. So when they're talking to me, oftentimes they're talking to 10 or 20 other children and getting material from them as well. And so that predator is looking for those vulnerabilities where they can meet that need and become what that child is looking for. And very quickly, a friend becomes a very close, trusted friend. And then they start to cross the boundaries that make it actual grooming and not just sort of innocuous talk, where they start to ask boundary violations like sexualization, grooming, body development questions, and sexual behavior questions. And like you said earlier, we used to think that kids saw pornography at 13, 14, and now they're seeing it 8, 9 years old, and when that's their sexual development, you can understand why they think when that friend that they trust and that they've grown to believe in asks them to do something that they're seeing in these videos online, they're very easily believing that it's a normal thing to do. And they're also used to all of their other friends talking about the same things, sending nude images to each other and to strangers, and so very quickly it becomes something that it's just everyone's doing it.
It's pretty scary. Joe, you work all over the country and even the world on human trafficking cases. What is the connection online? What are you seeing in your online investigations?
Everything's online. You used to have the days back, and there's still tracks, there's still places you can go where women are walking up and down the street, but that's few and far between anymore. Every country I've been in, we've been able to build our cases completely online. I always laugh because you can be in a country where somebody literally runs by with Coke bottles taped to their feet, scrolling an iPhone 14, and it's wild how empowering that phone is and what it can do. Especially with the explosion of COVID, that really blew up a lot of online. A ton shifted. That's really what gave OnlyFans the big boost that they needed to crank up. And it's just all there.
Tell us what OnlyFans is for some of us
who may not know. For those that don't know OnlyFans, I can sign up for an OnlyFans account as generally a female. Most men are not going to make much money. But as a female, you can get on, you create an account, and basically you create pornography that is posted to your OnlyFans. So then I can go on and subscribe to you and pay $30 a month, and it's literally like Facebook. You just scroll right down, and I can watch whatever you're doing on OnlyFans. So that really created a lot of issues. There's a bunch of controversy with them because, you know, minors are obviously getting on there. An adult gets on, creates the account, does everything they need, and the next thing you know, 16-year-old girl is on there as well. We've seen quite a bit of trafficking that's actually shifting to also include OnlyFans because they can literally create that content and make money 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, while also engaging in the commercial sex that's even leading to that anyway. So the digital footprint is there. The beauty of digital footprints is that helps me and him do our jobs because we can track you. And that it's a double-edged sword, honestly. But really, trafficking has just predominantly shifted to the internet.
What about you, Ashley? Are you seeing the same thing in your work in Mississippi?
Yeah, every case that we have involves online. And so, like Joe said, Joe actually came and trained our unit when we stood up our human trafficking unit. And Andrea actually gave me everything to be a coordinator. So I have two fabulous mentors right here with me. But yeah, every case that we see is online. We have kids with Amazon wish list. And so the perpetrators, the predators will send them things, you know, on Amazon, like lingerie, like different things, and they'll go and they'll wear it in these videos on their OnlyFans site. We had one child that was missing for 7 months, and she was actually found in Texas. And so she was a great student. There was no history of runaway. She had a single mom. The issue was mom's boyfriend. And mom's boyfriend was apparently raping her, and nobody believed her. And so she went online and found out how do you disappear without a trace. And she did a very good job. And so, but our intelligence analyst, there was like one little piece of evidence, one receipt in her room, and she took that, worked with Joseph, worked with National Child Protection Task Force, and we were able to, in the U.S. Marshals, and we were able to find her in Texas safe and bring her back home, and got her the mental health that she needed, got her enrolled back in school, but also got her with her aunt and uncle that she wanted to live with. And so gave her a voice and a choice as well in that.
Awesome. Thank you. Jen, can you talk about some of the things that NCMEC can actually do? We talk about these kids getting desperate situations. They post something, they share something, they might regret it, they want to take it back, it starts going viral. What can NCMEC do to help with that?
Sure. Content removal is really important to these kids. That's the thing that they're most scared about. That's what they have that anxiety over, right? Is that picture is out there. And, I know you were talking a little bit about our development and all of that. And, when I think about it, the assumption that we have for kids these days of decision making of what to post and not post and share and not share, even at my age, I see some of my friends post sometime and I'm like, we can see that, right? Like, and that's an adult, and so we ask of our kids to have this filter that even as adults, we don't even have. And so it is really important to be able to have tools that allow them to feel like they're part of the process of getting that picture back or being an active part in helping take it down. And before I dive into that, I do just want to note, sexting and sharing nudes is normative behavior these days. We just have to sit in that and own it and cringe in it if that's what, not what we're used to from what our childhood. But sharing nudes is what kids are doing these days. This is how they flirt. This is how they do their sexual exploration. This is just the way it is. And so we have to adapt to messaging to them, to keeping them safe, help empower them with decision making and how to stay safe, because we just can't say don't do that. They're gonna do it. So along those lines, and to your question, we kind of have three ways that we can offer kind of a takedown service or assistance to kids when they've posted it and they go, oh no, right? Like that picture's out. So first, if you go to our website, we have a section that's called Is Your Explicit Content Out There? And basically what that is a cheat sheet to a lot of the main social media platforms, so your Snap and Instagram and Facebook and all of those, and it's a quick access to how to notify them that you want that picture taken down. You don't have to now go to your Facebook, go to the safety center, log in, click, 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 click to get where you need to do that. We just basically have a cheat sheet that allows a child or a parent to go and say, I'm going to want to contact all of these companies and tell them to take the picture down. We also have our reporting form. One thing that's really important to us at the National Center is to say that reporting has to be part of prevention, because something bad is going to happen. And we don't want kids to feel like they failed at prevention if they do make a mistake. We have a survivor consultant who travels and does presentations with us, and she's an adult now victim of online enticement when she was younger. And she had this great quote one time, and I asked if I could use it, and she said yes. But she said, as a child, I was taught to never talk to strangers online, but I was never told what to do if I did. Right? And so we have to make sure that we talk about reporting as part of that process, because that's why kids don't come to us, because they think they failed at prevention. So we have to say, here's all the prevention. Oh, and if something does happen, here's what you can do. So we do have the cyber tip line reported into us. We get a lot of reports coming directly from kids, especially with the financial extortion side. 50% of the reports that came in were from kids directly. So we want kids to know about the cyber tip line because they are reaching out to us. Luckily Walker, had such a great relationship with his dad, and you could see Brian cared so much about him, but not every child has an adult or a parent who's that involved or who would be that receptive to it. And then finally, we have a news service. It's called Take It Down. And this is our most anonymous service. So basically, all a child would do is go to Take It Down. They select the images or videos from the device itself, and a hash value is created. So a hash value is like a digital fingerprint for a file. So nothing's transmitted. No images being sent to NECMEC, but the digital fingerprint for that is being submitted to us, which we then offer to companies who are engaged with this initiative with us, and will take down those pictures. So that it's a most bare bone, just called Take It Down. They select the file that they want to submit to us. That hash is created and put on that list. So now that company can scan for that. If they see it, they take that picture down. So we're really trying to find tools that, one, get the pictures down and off the internet, but also things that kids can do, because they want to take action. They want to do something when this has happened. They don't want to just call out and feel like someone else is doing it. They want something they can do too.
That's awesome. I love that y'all have
Can I
gotten
add
that
something to
proactive.
that?
Yes,
Yeah.
sure.
So one thing I was thinking about, and you and I were talking about this, is that in the training in the schools, I've seen a lot of training in the schools, and they're talking about sending nudes and not sending nudes. It's been very fear-based, and it is, you'll be arrested if you send a nude. If you share this, you're going to jail. Trying to scare the kids into not doing it. Well, for me, that is telling a kid, you can't talk to your parents. You can't share this with your parents. And it's also telling parents, hey, we can't tell law enforcement about this, because then my kid's going to go to jail, so we've got to hide this. I was sitting in my Bible study, Rushma and I's Bible study. We have 9 women in there. 2 of their children have been impacted by sextortion, boys, within the past few months. 2 out of 9 in small town Mississippi. Okay, y'all, we don't know how big this is. But what you can do from today is go home and you tell your kid, I love you, and no matter what you do, we can get through this. No matter what happens, don't you ever think that there's anything that I can't help you through. And that's what we can do today in honor of Walker and his family.
Well, you just stole all our thunder, because that's one of the main messages we're going to be bringing to y'all. We're going to be providing lots of educational tools for everybody out there, and LB is going to talk about that later, so don't feel like you have to write everything down. It's coming. Thank you for that. That's a really good point. I wanted to just circle back with Joe and maybe Brandon about how are we doing putting these people in jail? And if we're not doing so well, what can we do better? I mean, we're talking about prevention, but as a mama bear myself, I'm just getting angrier and angrier. So,
Yeah, that's tough because I like to think we're doing a good job, right? You know, how many hours do we spend at nighttime losing out with my kid while I'm trying to pretend to be a kid, right?
I used to have hair.
Yeah, me too. But no, I think we're doing a good job, but we can always do better, right? And this is where, in many ways, I look at law enforcement administrators in particular. You can only count so many beans. And eventually we have to do something to prevent this from happening to a kid. There is, to me, really no better feeling, especially with these type of cases, than watching that guy's face when he sees us. Because he literally is there to engage in sexual assault of a child, and we're the ones that he gets to face. The problem is there's only so many of us, right? In Waco, there's only 2 of us that have done this. When you look at ICAC task forces, phenomenal things going on. They're so restrained in what they're doing in many cases. So really just having that support of the public is huge. And I think when you look at law enforcement, celebrating those wins with administrators makes administrators want to do good things, right? So really getting out there with them. The reality is I can post an app, I can get on any given app, and within 1 minute get hit up by somebody who thinks they're talking to a kid. I had one that I went live at 8:55 a.m. At 8:56 a.m., a guy out of Tarrant County was already messaging me. It goes very quickly, even looking back at the 3 hours that it took, you know, there. You can watch the grooming process begin almost immediately. When we text, I use a number for another state. So one of the very first things is, why do you have that number in Waco? Well, when I was visiting my dad last summer, he got me a phone, right? I just established I'm in a single parent home. And you could almost immediately watch these degenerate losers begin doing what they're doing within seconds. So, you know, I wish there were more of us doing it, but we're limited by that.
I don't think we can arrest our way out of this problem. I've said that for years. Believe me, me and my partners that I work with in Dallas-Fort Worth, and there are some men and women there that spend every waking hour protecting kids online across the state. We've been to Houston, we've been to Waco, we've been to Austin, and we've arrested people in all of these places. Cops, teachers, firefighters, doctors, nurses. It doesn't matter. So we can't arrest our way out of that. When we make an arrest, we ask you, the public, you, the advocates, to speak to your legislators, your representatives, to your district attorneys, your prosecutors, your community, and advocate for penalties for this behavior. But ultimately, my belief is the way to stop this, and ultimately, like, I don't want to, if I cannot respond to a child being victimized and just stop it from ever happening altogether, that's my goal. If a child never has to live this trauma, the trauma that they've gone through, the Walker family, or the Montgomery family, the trauma that the survivors have gone through, if they can never have to go through it at all, that's the ultimate goal. And in order to do that, I think that's education like this. Parents being educated that it's happening and how frequently. You know, we fight what I call the NMK syndrome, the not my kid, it couldn't happen to me. And so if we can educate parents that it is happening and that your kid is at more risk of online exploitation than being kidnapped or anything else like that they worry about, then we can actually make a difference by stopping the behavior altogether.
awesome. Sure.
Yeah, just to add one more thing. You know, I try to tell parents, the boogeyman is not jumping out from behind the bushes and taking your kid. The boogeyman is talking to your kid at nighttime when you put them to bed in the place that they're supposed to feel safe. That's where the bad guys are coming in to your home. They're not coming out kidnapping. I don't care if you're on aisle 5 at Target and some guy makes this weird look at somebody. They're not kidnapping you and taking you into trafficking or anything like that. We need to be worried about what's going on behind closed doors where we feel the safest, because that's where they're taking the absolute most advantage of our children.
Awesome. Okay, so on that note, let's start with Keisha, and I want each of you to say what is the most important thing in your mind that parents and all of us who care about children can do to prevent this from happening or address it.
Yeah, I think it comes down to that secure attachment, right? And that you have with your kid. So having that relationship, talking with them, educating them, because they're in it. And once you know, you can have those conversations. And just constantly checking in with them and having those conversations, because like it happened in 3 hours, it may not happen one day, but the next day it does. And so if you have these conversations with them and they know that they can come and talk to you, then you're on their side. You're helping them whenever this may or may not happen to them.
Education, awareness, parenting. We need to parent our kids. We can't be afraid to parent our kids. Don't look away. It is so hard to look at this and do something about it. I'll give you 4 little quick tips. Number 1, delay giving them a smartphone. I very unfortunately gave my daughter a smartphone at age 10. I wish to hell I hadn't. It cost so much. Number 2, never, ever, ever allow it behind a closed door, which we do. We take our phones behind in the bedrooms because it's our alarm clock, it's everything, right? Most of us don't even have phones in our houses anymore. Our kids take their laptops, their phones, and they go do their homework in a quiet place. Predators love that. My daughter shared with me the best place to take her smartphone and do whatever she was doing at the time was in the bathroom, because she knew that I would never violate her privacy in the bathroom. I'm gonna always knock first. Next, don't gift the phone, provide the phone. And that way, if you have to take back the phone, I owe the phone. It's not your present, it belongs to me. And finally, privacy, forget it. Your kid gets 0 privacy when it comes to technology. And if your kid has technology in their hands, whether it's an iPad, even a Kindle, believe it or not, a laptop, or a phone, a predator has potential access. That's all. Thank you.
I think what I would say is commit today to that one thing that you will do. So many times we go to these events and we hear about tragedies and we're so moved by them. And then we leave and we move on with life as if it didn't happen. And so what I would say to you is consider what your area of influence is and commit today to bring awareness to this and commit today to be a part of the solution.
I would say you're already doing it. Learn about the issue yourself first. I mean, I think that's the most important point first, is you have to know what's out there, what the dangers are, what your child might be facing online. And then that kind of segues into, and it sounds funny if you're an adult, but be a safe adult that a child can come to, and I think I heard a story one time that was so impactful to me. It was about a girl who was being abused by her parents' best friend, her dad's best friend, and he would abuse her during family barbecues and get-togethers and that sort of thing. So she disclosed to her parents and told them, and she talked at depth about how it changed the entire vibe of her family, of the house. Like, everyone was completely stressed out. The parents were like, are you sure? Are you sure? They did not know how to receive this information. And she said it was so uncomfortable and so strange, she just decided to recant. She said she walked up to her parents and said, you know what, never mind, I made that all up. I was mad and I just threw that out there. And she was like, luckily it all went back to normal. But here she tried to disclose to her parents and it didn't work. And so I think, a lot of this is what we're all saying is it can happen. We don't want it to, but if your child comes to you, pause on your emotion and just be there for that child in that moment and just say, I'm in this with you. your fear, your anger, unfortunately, has to take a back seat. We got to be with that child first and just be in it with them. And again, you can only do that if you know about these issues and what's going on, and you're ready for them and you know how to respond. And communication is key. Talk to your kids. At the National Center, we have discussion guides, because I think it's also hard to say to parents, go talk to your 14-year-old about this really uncomfortable, awkward thing, right? And good luck. But we have discussion guides, ways you can start these conversations and get the child to open up and talk to your kid about, things in the neighborhood or things that happen at the school to someone else, and use those as an opening point for those discussions. But you got to start talking to the kids. That's the biggest key.
This isn't a dark web problem. This is happening on the apps that you have on your phones, because they're happening on the apps that kids are on. The gaming apps, the Snapchats, the Instagrams, you've heard these apps. So the advice we give to parents is be intentional. We start at a young age teaching our kids how to brush their teeth, showing them how to brush and telling them what to do. And then every year we continue teaching them. When they're 6 or 7, have you brushed your teeth? Let's go do it again. 12, 13, have you brushed your teeth? Your teeth stink. Go brush your teeth. At 16, I'm having this talk with my daughter at 14. Please go brush your teeth twice a day minimum, okay? But we want to start that talk when they're 13 or 14 about these problems. Start young, have age-appropriate development questioning and answer, and just be intentional about it. Be involved, get in there, and have the hard discussions, because when you've done that all the way along, if something happens where they just feel like, I can't tell anyone else about this, they'll know, you know what, I've always been able to have safe, comfortable conversations about the hardest things with my parents or whoever you are in their lives, and they'll feel like, I can go to you about this and nothing bad is going to happen. You're going to help me out of it. And that's where we end the hopelessness that they feel, and they feel like, I've got someone advocating for me on my side.
Mine's a couple. For one, I always tell, especially cops, start by believing. If somebody has the courage to come to you and say, this is what happened to me, believe them. 2, don't lose your mind. We as parents lose our minds. We start blaming the kid. My child would never do this. My child did this. Why did you put yourself in this scenario? And that causes kids to come back and recant. When we look at outcries, if they come to you and say something, understand you are not going to get the full story. It's a nugget to see how you're going to act. And then it's going to be another nugget to see how you act. And when you lose your mind, that's when they're going to pull back. So let that nugget happen. Control yourself. Don't get on social media. I love this one. Moms and dads like getting on social media and screenshotting everything and sharing it. Everybody avoid this pedophile, and all this. You have just crushed any chance we have to be able to set that person up. You are not doing anybody a favor. The other, and hear me out, we focus so much on women and girls. Men and boys are sexually abusing women and girls. We really need to take a strong stance and hold males accountable. We need to stop, and it happens in 2023. She shouldn't have had that drink. She shouldn't have wore that dress. She shouldn't have gone with him. He still should not have put hands on her no matter what. So we need to really take a strong focus on our men and boys and hold them accountable for the abuse that they're causing to women.
All right, y'all, that's all the time we have. Help me thank this wonderful panel of experts. Thank you. All right, y'all don't go anywhere, because I have a treat next. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce you to one of my heroes who has become a dear friend. So bear with me, I'm going to read a little bit of his bio, because it's long, but I'm just going to give you a taste. So Congressman Ted Poe started his career as a school teacher and served in the Air Force. He then went on to be a prosecutor in the Harris County DA's office, and in his 8 years there, he never lost a jury trial. When you hear him speak, you will understand why. At age 32, he was the youngest judge elected to Harris County District Court. He spent over 22 years overseeing felony cases and was known for his innovative sentencing, which aimed to get offenders to understand the consequences of their actions. Some called this sentencing by Judge Poe poetic justice. Judge Poe was then elected 7 times to the United States Congress, and there he was co-founder of the Victims' Rights Caucus, the first ever caucus focused specifically on victims of human trafficking, victims of child abuse, victims of domestic violence, sexual assault. And he introduced and helped pass numerous pieces of bipartisan legislation in the House regarding sex trafficking, including the seminal Justice for Victims of Trafficking Act. He is co-founder of an anti-trafficking summit, along with me, and Father Bailly in Louisiana, that brings education, critical networking and collaboration, and sharing of innovative resources to the Mid-South states, including Texas. He is married. He has 13 grandchildren that he all calls by their birth number. But it's okay because they call each other by their birth numbers. And if anyone can rally us to this cause in Texas and beyond, it's Judge and Congressman Ted Poe.
Thank you, Andrea. Of course. Thank you for that introduction. Some of it's true. Great to be around you. You're an inspiration, not just to me, but to everybody who knows you. And I want to mention, first of all, something that Joe said about men and males. The few of you that are here that are males, we have got to do a better job with our boys. Men and fathers in this country are letting down their families because you see that the buyer, the person making the money on all of this sex crimes against children, they're males primarily. And so we got to do a better job raising our boys. We do. That is our responsibility. And there needs to be some awareness of male buyers in our community. Of course, Andrea mentioned something about I did some unusual things as a judge. If I had my way and I was still on the bench, buyers in this episode of crimes against children, their photographs would be on the front page of every newspaper that we have. You will stop that conduct if you shame the buyers. I'm serious. It will work. Now, Andrea only gave me 5 minutes. You ask me the time, I'll tell you how to make a watch. I never have done anything in 5 minutes. But the most important person in my life was my grandmother. She lived to be 99 years of age. I had great parents. I was raised right. But my grandmother was the most important person in my life because she just told me how things were. You know, she would use the phrase, "Let me tell you, Teddy, about this." That's what she would tell me. And one time she made the comment that, "Let me tell you about women." She said, "There is nothing more powerful than a woman who has made up her mind." You need to remember that. And you know deep down in your soul, that is a true statement. You mama bears out there, when you make up your mind, Lordy mercy, somebody's going to have to hang on. And that is true. And I am just encouraging you to make up your mind that you're just not going to take it. Not going to take it anymore. You've heard enough of all of the bad things that are going on, and you're here to try and to do something about it. Make up your mind and get on with it, as my grandmother would say. You know, when I went to Congress, there was a lot of caucuses. That's a group of members of Congress that advocate for something or against something. There's the offshore drilling caucus, and there's the anti-offshore drilling caucus, and a bunch of caucuses. But there was no group of members of Congress that advocated for victims of crime, survivors of crime. So myself and Jim Costa from California started the Victims' Rights Caucus, bipartisan. You haven't heard much about it because they get a lot of things done. And it was bipartisan, and there were 80 of us. There may be more than that now. 40 Republicans, 40 Democrats, and advocated on behalf of victims of crime in legislation. And like I mentioned, you didn't hear a whole lot about it because bipartisan legislation doesn't make the news. We're not fussing and fighting and feuding, you know. It makes the news. And so we introduced the Justice for Victims of Trafficking Act. It doesn't get much more bipartisan than Carolyn Maloney, a Democrat from New York that talks pretty funny, and a Texas Republican, as she says, that talks real funny, and sponsoring the Victims of Trafficking Act. And it passed. Obama signed it. But it passed overwhelmingly. Almost every member of Congress voted for it. So, and it's the work that we're trying to do to make, on the federal level, easier for the police to capture these outlaws and bring them to justice, but also to treat victims of crime like victims of crime and not like criminals, you know, because they're not criminals. Those children are not criminals. Women that are trafficked are not criminals. They're victims and survivors. And it's working. But we cannot, I agree, we cannot arrest enough people to get ourselves out of this epidemic that's going on. But awareness is the issue, and dealing with your daughters and your sons is very important. The advice that this panel gave you about your kids and other people's kids, it's good advice. But I'll give you one more piece of advice. Never, never let your middle school daughter go to the mall alone, ever, under any circumstances. I could give you too many cases where that has happened, and only bad things has happened to her. Just one piece of advice. One more little story, and then I'm done. As Andrea said, we have 13 grandkids. I call them by their birth number, and they call each other by their birth number, and have 4 kids, 3 daughters and a son. And when my oldest daughter, who lives here in Austin, and her family, was 8 years of age. They grew up in Houston. I'm from Houston primarily, not anymore. But anyway, grew up in Houston. She came to me and said, I want to play soccer. Soccer? We don't play soccer in Texas. You know, we play football. I mean, that's literally what I told her. Soccer? And so, okay, she talked me into it. Kim talked me into getting her on an 8-year-old girls' soccer team. So we did. Get her on the team. And right before the season started, the soccer coach on the 8-year-old girls' soccer team moved to California for some reason. And they needed a soccer coach for the 8-year-old girls. So Kim comes to me and, Daddy, will you be the coach? We won't get to play if we don't have a coach. Okay. Now, let me tell you something. I don't know anything about soccer. The first soccer game I ever saw was the first one I ever coached. That was the first one. And I'm holding a rule book there about how to play. I don't know anything about soccer. And it wasn't a great season. That's not the point of this comment here. I mean, we lost every game except we tied one 0-0. That was our only victory. But as I'm coaching these girls over the season, they kind of taught me something. I would take one of the girls out. I'd substitute, you know, you got to substitute. So I'd substitute one girl and bring her. She'd go on the sidelines, and I'd put another girl in. And occasionally, the one that I would take out, she would stand over here, and she'd start to pout. And then she'd start to cry. And then her mama over there in the stands, you know how you are, she's yelling at me, put my daughter back in, you know. And that went on for the whole season before I finally figured out about these girls. And it wasn't because we were winning and they wanted to win the game. They wanted to get in the game. They were crying and whining and pouting because they weren't playing. They wanted to get in the game. And, you know, we live in a culture where most people are not in the game. They're in the stands, yelling and screaming, drinking their beer and eating popcorn and hot dogs, and they criticize the people on the field of play. We live in a society where everybody is an expert in criticism. They're everywhere. We have never built a monument to a critic. Don't pay any attention to critics. They're weeds in the field of hope. But if you're doing something, there's going to be somebody self-righteously criticizing you for it. We need to be like those 8-year-old girls. We need to get in the game because you will never make a difference in the stands. You're only going to make a difference on the field of play. And it is not easy. It is hard. That's why we call upon you to get in the game. Nothing more powerful than a woman who has made up her mind. Thank you very much. Thank y'all. Oh, you're back there.
All right, who's made up their mind? All right? Well, a couple months ago, Lisa Copeland and Elena were on a flight, I think to Brazil, and you started talking about trafficking. And Elena was sharing with Lisa her heart about trafficking and her feelings on it. And Copeland, who's been involved in this awareness campaign since day one, said, oh, you got to talk to LB because you got to see what we got going on in Texas. And from that, we have Elena Cardone in the house, right? So we got on a Zoom call with Elena about a month ago, and I thought it was going to be about a 15-minute call. An hour later, we were still talking about stories and how we can make it bigger and what we can do. And when you hear her, you're going to hear her heart, because so many people have said to me, she's from Florida. Why is she coming to Texas? Well, her purpose is to empower women, protect children, and restore the family unit. That's why she's here. Elena Cardone started her career in Hollywood and soon became a successful model and actress. Today, she executive produces massive events like 10X Ladies and the Empire Academy, all while being a realtor with over 700 agents in her organization. She is a mother to Scarlett and Sabrina, wife to Grant Cardone, author of Build an Empire, How to Have It All. Elena is a businesswoman, empire builder, event producer, mentor, public speaker, and visionary. She is using her voice, that's true. She is using her voice, events, and platform to bring awareness to the ongoing issue of child sex trafficking. And now, I'm so proud she serves on the board of Not on Our Watch. Give it up for Elena Cardone.
Thank you all for having me, hosting me in your great state of Texas. I really appreciate it. So I will be very honest. Several years ago, first of all, let me just thank this incredible panel. Y'all have taught me so much. You have moved me. The judge, I mean, everyone. Lisa Beth, you're incredible. Of course, we've got to thank our First Lady of Texas, Cecilia Abbott, for being an advocate here. I want to tell you that it really is an honor to be invited to be on the board for Not on Our Watch. This is the part that's hard for me, is because several years ago, my friend Marisol Nichols came up to me. She's a very well-known actress. She's got a long list of achievements. She's on Riverdale right now, so she does actually have a lot of young followers right now. But several years ago, she went undercover. She's an undercover operative to bust these child sex trafficking rings. Her partner in the field is Tim Ballard, who now we all know from Sound of Freedom, but that's her partner in the field. And she came to me several years ago about what she was doing and about this subject and situation. My children were very little at the time, and I could not confront that evil. And so I said, Marisol, I will support and help you any way that I can financially, but I can't hear it. I don't want to hear it. I can't hear the stories. I cannot confront it. I don't want to hear anything about it. I just, at that time in my life, and I am ashamed to admit that now, but that is where I was at. I could not confront that. And now, my children are about to be 12 and 14 years old, girls, and this problem is not going away. And I re-looked at where I'm at in my life. I'm at a point now where I've had a lot of financial success and legacy financial making goals. And now in this next part of my life, it's about a spiritual legacy play for me and what is my purpose. And now that I've attained some certain things that give me more freedom to really live out my purpose. As LB said, I finally found myself. My purpose is to empower women, protect children, and restore the family unit to this planet. And I've finally gotten myself to a point where I can confront evil. I am strong enough. This is my first speaking event on this subject. This is not my wheelhouse. I speak in front of thousands of people for many different events. I've spoken to stadiums of 34,000 people. This is not my arena naturally, but this is going to become my arena. This is what I want to do. I am so greatly appreciative of the panel and everyone here's advice to me. It made me realize, I told my children, be prepared because we're going to put our phones in a basket at night, and I haven't done it. I got reasonable. I'm going to implement that. It is so thank you for that piece of advice. I'm playing scenarios over in my head, and you know, my daughter did come to me and tell me a story about her friend who has all these little boyfriends on social media, and she told me something that he said that was like really vulgar. And I made a phone call to the friend's mom because I started to, you know, become aware. I've recently just really started to indoctrinate myself, so I'm not the expert. I do commit to getting the knowledge that I need. I want all that information that these panelists are going to provide for us. I want to study it. The more knowledge I have, the more responsibility I can take for the area, the more control. But I'm telling you that this is still happening to me, even though I think, oh wow, I'm getting involved. I made the phone call to the mom in the text message, and I said, hey, I'm on this board. I want to talk to you about a few things. What did Maya do? You know, immediately. You know, and then I got busy, my excuse, and I realized when I was listening to the panel that I never had that conversation. This was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I never had that conversation with that mother. And her child is probably being victimized right now by another predator out there that she thinks is her friend, and her another 12-year-old, when that probably isn't the case. And I just kind of went blind to it. So it's astounding to me. I have a lump in my voice because you think that this really can't happen. And the more that I get around this and hear this and can confront it, the more I realize the more we really do need to unite, be strength in numbers, really get information to be able to support each other. It is a different world than we grew up in. We need to figure out how, exactly what everyone said, how to have these conversations, how to not blame them, how to, what was the gentleman said, not when he said when they put the nugget out, not to react? Lose your mind. You know, all these golden nuggets, I just really can't thank this panel and the work that you do. I believe your name is Brandon, if I didn't butcher that. Brandon and Maureen, and thank you. You know, like, because you changed my life today. I want you to realize that you changed my life today listening to this, because I got more knowledge, and with knowledge comes more responsibility. I'm more responsible right now than before I walked in that door. And I know I'm probably speaking on behalf of a lot of you right now, even though I never like to speak on behalf of anyone else. But if I am speaking on behalf of you, raise your hand so I know I'm not alone. Okay, awesome. So, and thank you all. I had just made a couple of notes here. I'm just going to briefly go through some points that were a little shocking to me when I did my research. Again, I'm not the expert, so if any of you guys and gals back there that were on the panel, if anything I'm saying is false and not true, I will not be offended. I'm here learning. I'm here as a student. I'm here as an advocate. I'm here because I want to be more of a figure, and I have to just start by doing it. It's like the other gentleman said. I mean, my light bulbs have just been going boom, boom, boom. It's commit first and figure the rest out later, like the soccer, your soccer analogy. Like, he's like, yes, we're going to do it. He didn't know. Commit first and figure the rest out later. So that's what I'm doing, and that's why I, came here to Texas to be here with you, to just start, not wait until I think I'm perfect or know more or I'm the authority to speak on it. I haven't been in the business for the 20 years or the 10 years or even more than 6 months, but it just starts with a commitment and a commitment, as the judge said, to decide, not on our watch, no more. So let me just tell you some things that I ran into in the research, okay? So yes, they already said all of our children are at risk of being potential victims to sex trafficking and or the sex exploitation. I'm convinced after the numbers and the statistics, and based on now as I'm recounting things in my mind, I'm pretty sure, again, I could be wrong, but I think if the data is true that they're saying it's within minutes, every single one of our children have come across it. Maybe they escaped it, but I'm almost certain all of our children have had a flicker, or if not directly targeted. I'm just convinced of that from today. Okay, so I found out that the United States is the #1 consumer and producer of child sex trafficking exploitation in this world. Is that true? United States is the #1. Like, I did not know that. I always thought it was over there. So yeah, we're the largest producer and consumer of child abuse content. The New York Times reported, I guess this was back in 2019, so the number could be different, but I'll quote it. The sexual exploitation of children on the internet is a $20 billion industry that continues to expand in the US. It's probably a lot more, I'm guessing. I mean, think about that though, a $20 billion industry. Is that fair, just from the internet? Do you think that that's a real number, or do you think it's more? I mean, I'm sure it's more now, but yeah. I mean, but imagine that, like how big of a company has to be 20 billion? Does anyone have any of those figures? Like, I think Lisa and I were looking up, like, you have a supermarket here or something. Yeah, like 20 billion are companies that everyone's heard of. Yet this is an industry that, unless you're really in it, and maybe I'm just totally occluded, but up until very recently, isn't really known. You know, it's like Mr. Montgomery, was that from the? It's like Mr. Montgomery said, like, you can't fight a battle if you don't know it's there or exist. This is an industry that is highly profitable that I would think most of us don't really understand the nature and how ginormous. You know, you can't arrest yourself out of this, your way out of this, which is why we need to come together and kind of figure out and start having these conversations and bringing about awareness. And how do we support these other entities and organizations that are fighting these people and arresting them and getting to show up and see Cowboy Marine back there. Like, how do we support more of these, you know, because I want to see his face, you know. So, yeah, just these things that I found out, you know, the molesting of a child in front of a live webcam can earn these degenerates $1,000, I guess, per video, per night. I mean, it's stuck there forever. This is all eye-opening to me. It's just unreal. How they do it, how they groom our children. Y'all talked more about that than I care to even imagine, but this is what I summed up from what everyone said here is they secure the trust. That's what I heard you say. They secure the trust, they fulfill the need, they isolate them from potential support, and they eventually take and exert total control while working to normalize the abuse. That was the summarization. I'll probably make up those words too. Okay, this is an interesting tip. Not really know where it's going, except for this is a multi-billion-dollar industry just in the internet alone. We know that, okay? So I'm not sure who's profiting from this, what organizations are profiting for this. A lot of people I know are profiting from this. I'm not sure what the content or the reasoning behind this is, but the American Medical Association, the AMA, just downgraded pedophilia from a disorder to a preference. You can't make this stuff up. I don't know who they is. This is why I'm here. I don't know. I don't know what is the big mastermind. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but I've got to open my eyes and start pulling the string. Like the string of, you know, the lady that spoke about her daughter and she saw the one picture and pulled the string and that was just the tip. We've got to start pulling the strings. Like what is out there trying to set us up to accepting and normalizing and why? There is a need. United States is the #1 producer and consumer of this content. Somebody or something has an agenda to keep that and make a lot of money off of it and to normalize it because it is a big business. People don't like when you threaten multi-billion-dollar industries. They don't like it. What they like to do is put organizations and people into place to keep it secure and protected so they can keep profiting. Am I right on that? Do you think I'm right on this? Not on our watch. I love that. I love that. Okay, so let's see. Bullet points. Again, these people are contacting our children with the computers, with the tablets, with the phones, and it's while we're in the same room, the next room, we're watching TV, we're doing the dishes, we're doing our work, and this is happening. And I've heard Marisol Nichol quote this phrase, and this could be a common nomenclature in your industry, but that phrase that people keep saying that I keep hearing, which is this technology is the new white van. You know, this is the thing that we need to be aware of and to alert ourselves to, is really not to be discarded. It's really true here. That's what I got from this event today. So I'm just going to bullet point and again highlight what I heard from everyone else. It's the education, the knowledge piece. It's crucial. Understanding the signs, what you're looking for, and they have all the content that y'all provided in the back of the room. Number 2, the open communication. I love that advice. What is it? Don't go crazy? What was it? Don't lose your mind. Don't lose your mind. Open communication. Believe them, trust them. Don't make them wrong. They're a victim, okay? They are a victim. We've got society telling us all kinds of crazy stuff. All kinds of crazy stuff. We have all kinds of influences in schools and everywhere, indoctrination about what you can be and not be, and you can be everything, and it's cool to be this and that, and if you're, straight, you're boring, if you're this. Like, there is so many crazy ideas out there right now. How can you blame them? I mean, how can you blame them when a kid can show up at a school, wear a tail, and go piss, excuse my French, if that's even French, I don't want to insult the language, but can go pee in a litter box in a bathroom because they identify as an animal, and they can walk each other around by leashes? This is really happening in schools. And yet, if your kid accidentally, on purpose, takes a picture of a boob or a vagina, we have to go make them wrong when they're living with all of this thing, and this is right, and this is cool, and I don't want to be like mom and dad. They're sticking the muds, and this person's, like, how can you blame them? They're being groomed by everyone in society and everything that's going on. It's just mind-blowing, and we have to say and take a stand. Like the judge is saying, we have to be the mama bears, and take our power back and say, this is it. Not on our watch. It stops here. We have the power. We have the power, okay? It's like he said, when we make up our minds, nothing can stop us. Power, the definition of power in the dictionary means the capacity, or actually I wrote it down word for word. It means, doesn't say you're the CEO or a billionaire, millionaire, whatever. This is the definition of power, and this is what we have. This is what we need to claim back. Power is the capacity or the ability or influence of the behavior of others or the course of events. It's the capacity or the ability to influence the behavior of others or the course of events. That is power. The derivation, the origin of the word power means to be able. Be able. We all need to claim our power back as women, as mothers, and take a stand on what we believe in. If you believe in family values, you do not need to be afraid of hurting somebody else's feelings because they think that they're a cat or a dog. Okay? I'm also not saying they need to be bullied or not have equal rights under the law, okay? No one deserves to, I mean, there is a line here. It is your power. It is our rights to say this is what and how we want our children influenced. And I don't want your say on what I do and with my children. And we have to be willing to have strength in numbers and not worry about being canceled or not be worried about who's going to call us whatever phobia-phobic, not inclusive, this, that, or whatever. It's, what's true for you is what's true for you. And the people that align with you and your morals, your values, your beliefs, they will gravitate to you. And the people that don't and are not for families, There are people on this world that have an active interest in crushing the family unit. The people that want to put you in boxes and label you an anti this or that, I promise you, they're anti-family unit. That is your enemy. That is the enemy to the people that go out there and want to try to rehabilitate the family unit, because they're trying to kill it, by the way. They are trying. I don't know who they is. I have to continue to study and do my research, but I do know there is a big effort out there to crush the family unit. They're not giving us says in our school. They're not telling us what they're doing with our children. They're trying to eliminate you and us from having the power of influence over our families. Those are the enemies to us, okay? The people that want to put you, label you, they're either against the protection of children, against families, and against any person that actually has the audacity to stand in their integrity and speak up and stand up. So that's why I'm here today. I am willing 100% to say what I feel. I'm no longer, I've made a decision. I am done worried about being canceled. I'm done caring about the labels. I need to take a stand. We as women and men need to take our power back. If you are on this path and you agree with it, take our power back and take control. Control, knowledge, responsibility, and control. Not only for our families, but for our communities, and change the trajectory of this planet. I believe it's the women that are going to do that. It's in a downward spiral right now, and we can no longer afford the luxury of staying silent. So, in conclusion to this massively impactful, powerful day that I have been bestowed, I would like to invite you, if I may, to join Not on Our Watch. I think there's a QR code. There's a QR code. It's a nonprofit. If you wanna, Jeremy's finding the QR code to all the live streamers out there. You know, there's the QR code, they're showing me that they're on cards on the tables. They're there too. So look, if you want to be a part of this nonprofit, you want to get more knowledge, information about the tools and how to have conversations and let's see, the online awareness, recognizing red flags, the reporting, the support organizations, advocacy. You want to participate, you want to commit first while we figure this thing out. Let's get strength in numbers. Let's build a movement, a coalition. I think I just made up another word. What is the word? Coalition? I never went to college, okay? But hey, I'm going places in life, okay? When you don't know words, just make them up. That's what I do. What is the word? Coalition. Let's form a coalition. Let's make a decision today that we're the ground roots, we're the founders. We can create a movement. If each single person in this room made a post or contacted a friend, I guarantee you, before I get on my flight back out to Miami, I am talking to my friend's mom. If everyone just actually does a physical activity in the physical universe, does a post, does something, we literally can reach the millions. We can make a difference. We can join this little organization. We can continue. I want to bring this to Florida and just continue to bring awareness. The more that we do, the more that we'll figure out what to do and how to do it and how to join forces and figure out what's needed and wanted, because I don't know, this is new for me. You know best, and y'all know best back in the room, and you can advise people like me that can use our influence, no matter how big or how small it may be, and recognize that you do have the ability, as Mr. Montgomery says, to save a life. And we can, and you are that powerful, and we are that strength in numbers. So I just want to thank you all for having the Floridian by the way, I have apartments here. I have apartments in Austin. That's got to count for something. I've got apartments in Houston. I'm rooted in Texas too. Okay. So I just really want to thank you for hearing me out on my first ever groundbreaking step into my non-comfort zone spotlight for the first time. You know, I promise you, I'll become a better speaker on this subject. I will probably cry less. I will be more empowered. I'll do my part. And whatever we can do that I can help these people on the front lines continue to do what they're doing. We need you. I applaud you. And you can just count on me from this point forward that I'm going to do everything I can to protect these children and to wipe this out because, you know, I started off saying they need us because they don't have the voice or the strength or the ability to pull themselves out of this. So I started to say we need them. And I had a conversation with a gal earlier. She had to leave. But she said to me, you say they need us, but we need them. These are our children. These are our children. This is the forward motion of mankind. Like, we need them. So we need to stand up and protect and help them. And thank you so much for having me on this stage today. And it's really an honor. Thank you.
It'd be nice if Elena had a little more passion about this, wouldn't it? Wow, I am completely inspired. I hope you are too. We're getting ready to wrap it up. Thank you. Safe travels. Thank you. She literally is on her way to the airport right as we speak, as she's walking out the door. Thank you all for being here. We do have cards on the tables. And starting on Thursday, we'll be posting a lot of information, but on Thursdays we'll be posting educational tools that you can share, learn them, share them, send them out. And then also on the other side, it'd be remiss not to say, hey, we need some money. That'd be amazing. So the QR code will take you right to our website so you can get more information, but also we would love for you to be a part of this. We want to take this everywhere. We want to take it across the state, and it's going to take speaking engagements and conferences and media. It takes media. And right now we have a media group that has said that, and they cover 89% of the state, that for every dollar we put into media to this, they'll match it. So I'm gonna be like a Elena Cardone and don't say any little bit. No, come on, be big. Make a difference so we can make a difference. So with that, thank you for being here. She did the rallying cry, let's do it. It's called what? Not on our watch, that's right. So thank you for being here. The bar is open. We have a networking happy hour. We've got some charcuterie boards. Go back, network. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much.